Welcome to Lesson 9-6, Factoring Trinomials. The difference between the trinomials we're factoring today as opposed to the ones we factored yesterday are that we have an a value here. Yesterday, all of our trinomials started with the term x squared. Now we're going to have a number or a coefficient of that x squared. And so it's going to provide us with a few more options, but the process is pretty much the same. Don't forget, when we FOIL, we have to take our first, our outer, our inner, and our last. So notice here that the product A that we get in our trinomial is dependent upon not only the first term here, but the first term here. Our C value is obviously the product of our last, and then our B value is the sum of the outers and the inners. Okay, so let's look at our first example and see what is going on. So we've got a 20x squared plus 17x plus 3. And what I recommend doing is, again, starting off with your two binomial parentheses. That kind of gets things going. And then you can look at your term here, and I have an x squared, and I don't have any variables at the end here. So I know my first terms are going to have x's in them, okay? Then, just like we did yesterday, we're going to look at our third term, and it's going to give us clues as to our signs, okay? So we have a positive here, so then we glance to the second term and we have a positive. That still tells us that both of our signs here are going to be plus. Okay? Now comes the kicker. We've got to figure out factors of 20 and factors of 3. Well, factors of 20, start to list them, and you've got 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Okay? I think that's all of them. So those are our factors of 20. With 3 is a prime number, so we've got 3 and 1. I'm going to put a 1 here and a 3 here, okay? It doesn't really matter, especially since our signs are the same. It doesn't really matter where I put those for right now. Now, I have a 1 and 20, a 2 and 10, or a 4 and 5. Think about what happens. Our outers and inners now have to make 17. Ooh, okay. So our outers and inners have to make 17. So you have to ask yourself, well, wait a minute. One of those numbers, if I put, like, let's just say I put a 1 here, okay, and a 20 here. That means the 3 is going to be multiplied by the 1 in my outers, and my inners is going to make 20 for a total of 23. I need 17. So you can see how guessing and checking kind of comes into play here. So I'm going to clean back up my binomials, and I'm going to try again. Now, I could, okay, I could put the, remember we had 2 and 10. Imagine if I put a 2 here or a 10 here. If I put a 10 here, guess what? It's going to be multiplied by the 3, and that makes 30, and we are way above our 17 budget. So I know I am not going to put a 10 here, but if I put a 2 here and a 10 here, that gives me my inners of 10 and my outers of 6. Oh, so close. So can't do those two, the 2 and 10 combination, so we're left with 4 and 5. And the more you practice these, again, the better you're going to become at picking out, yeah, 1 and 20 is going to be my last one to check, or 2 and 10 is going to be my last one to check, and you get better at them. 4 and 5. Now imagine if I put a 5 here, remember, it's going to have to be multiplied by 3, and if I put a 4 here, it's going to be multiplied by the 1. So I get 15x and 14x for a grand total of, yep, you guessed it, too big. But if I flip those now, and I put the 4 here, that gives me 12 for my outers, and if I put a 5 here, that gives me 5 for my inners. So my outers and inners, 12 and 5, make 17. So by guessing and checking along the way, you're able to figure out the factor. And again, you can practice these and you can work backwards to check. foil it and see if you get the correct answer. Okay, go ahead and try the next few examples on your own. We'll see how you do. Here we go for quick check 1, 2y plus 1 and y plus 2. The nice thing about this one here in particular is that 2 is prime and 2 is prime. So you really only have options of putting a 2 here or here. Now notice when I put the 2 in this place, it's going to make 4 for my outers and 1 for my inners, which gives me a total of 5, okay? So that's kind of key. Now notice here again, our last term was prime. So again, you really only had that 7 and 1 option. And using your clues, notice this tells me the signs are the same. This one right here tells me the signs are both negative. So I have a 7 and a 1. Placing that 2 here ensures that the 7 will be multiplied by the 3 to give us 21, and then inside here in the inners gives us the negative 2n. Now notice something. Notice these two right here are they're almost identical except for this one sign here, okay, which is negative as opposed to the positive. And notice how it changes the look of the two binomials. Pretty cool, huh? Let's try another one. We now have a negative term here, okay? We have a negative c value, so that throws another little wrench into it, okay? I'm still going to set up my binomials because that's where I always set up. And I'm going to put my x's in, okay? So now I have a 3 and a 1. It's nice that this is a prime number because I know one of these is going to be 3 and one of them is going to be 1. And then I have, I'm just going to make another set here. I can put the 1x here and the 3x here. Now, I've got my signs. One's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. I don't know which one yet. Okay, so you can start to set things up, and guessing and checking is pretty much your only option initially for some of these, is to until you get really good at them. So I'm going to guess that we have 6 and 1. Let's just try 6 and 1. I don't know which one's positive and which one's negative, but if I put the 6 here and the 1 here, okay, notice that my outers are going to give me 18 and my inners are going to give me 1. Now if I put the 6 with the 3, okay, I put the 6 with the 3 and the 1 here, my outers give me 6, my inners give me 3, neither of which has a difference of 7. So I'm not even worried about the signs right now, I'm just trying to get that magic 7. So 6 and 1 are probably not going to be my good options here. Okay, so then I go to my other two factors of 6, which is 2 and 3. So I can put the 2 right here in the same parenthesis as the 3, and then the 3 in the opposite one. Notice how my outers give me 9 and my inners give me 2. My other option would be to put the 2 with the 1 and the 3 with the 3. My outers give me 3, my inners give me 6. The difference there isn't going to be 7, but the difference up here is. So I have just been able to eliminate this pair of binomials. So now I can look at, and I double check, my outers give me 9x, my inners give me 2x. Now, which product do I want to be negative? Notice that the difference is negative, so I want the bigger product to have that negative sign. So if I put the negative there, I'm left with a positive here. My outers give me negative 9x, my inners give me positive 2x, which then has a difference of negative 7x. And I can double check my first terms gives me 3x squared, and my last terms gives me negative 6. Okay, go ahead and guess and check on the next 3 quick checks and see how you do. If you look at this quick check 2, we've got 5d plus 1 times d minus 3, and then 2n plus 3 times n minus 1, and then 4p plus 1 times 5p plus 9. Now there's one other thing that you need to watch out for, and that is when you can factor out a monomial first. Remember when we talked about greatest common factor? Well, what we're going to do here is we're going to look at each of the terms, and this is actually always the first thing you should do when you're factoring, is look and see if you've got a greatest common factor. And I notice here that I have a factor of what? I have a factor of 3. So if I take a factor of 3 out, I'm left with the trinomial 6x squared plus 11x minus 10. This alone is a little, just allows you to have that greatest common factor out of there. Gives you fewer options for factors of, like, there's only 2 factors of 10, whereas opposed to with 30, there's a lot more. And the same with 18 and 6. So now what we're going to do is this 3 is a factor, okay? And this is actually going to end up being 3 factors. So we factor out the 3, and then we're left with factoring out this trinomial into 2 binomials. See if you can guess and check that. And again, I notice one of my signs is going to be positive, one's going to be negative. I know I'm going to have an x here and an x here. I'm going to go with, let's see here. I'm going to try a 2 here and a 3 here. Okay? And then I'm going to try a 2 and 5. Again, I'm just guessing right now. So if I put a 5 here, that gives me 10, and a 2 here, that gives me 6. Not going to work. If I put a 5 here, that gives me 15. And if I put a 2 here, guess what that gives me? That gives me my outers of 4x, my inners of 15x. What's the difference? 11x. Perfect. So now I just need to make sure that my biggest product gets the plus sign here, and then this right here is going to get the negative sign. So factor completely, I end up having 3 times the quantity, 2x plus 5 times the quantity, 3x minus 2. Go ahead and try the next 3. Be sure to take out that greatest common factor before you finish. In 3, I've taken out a factor of 2, and then the result I can factor v minus 5 times v minus 1. In B, I've got 2 times the quantity 2y plus 1 times y plus 3. And then I've taken out a factor of 6 here to be left with 3k plus 1 times k minus 1. Please write down your questions and keep them for class. Or send me an email. Thanks.